Well, hello everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Winedown. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Hello, Nick, and how are you going?
I'm very well indeed. I'm very well indeed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about the Essential Eight. But before we do that, as is normal in the Winedown, where are we and what are we drinking?
Given that we're in Winedown lockdown, um, we are on the internet, but we've managed to synchronise on at least a type of wine or a brand of wine. Although I noticed the one that I picked is a 2018, and you've managed to find the 2020.
Yes, I did. So I went. I
So
went to my bottle shop and I found
we've
a.
got the
Let me get that
well,
in
where are we this way?
shot. Yes.
So I can tell you all of a sudden yours is going to be noticeably different to mine.
So unlike old technology, old wine is better, whereas old technology
Uh,
is not better, right?
old wine gets better over time before it then declines very rapidly into vinegar. In If it's not designed to be a long-lasting wine, technology becomes more cost-effective over time because generally you've already paid for it and you're just letting it there run. But the reality is it actually costs more over time because it's older, slower, less productive, and uses more power and so forth. But yes, it's a bit of a fake economy in that respect.
And also less secure, which is what we're going to talk about. But before we do, give us a rundown of the wine, Scott, because that's
The
obviously how we
wine.
start these. Yes.
Well, given we didn't want to go around to 20 different bottle shops because that seems like be the thing that only people with COVID do, I thought we'd just find something in the bottom of the cellar here, and I picked this out. It's a decent sort of pub wine. It's a St Helen's Faith. It's their sort of rock solid entry level performer on the pub scene. This is the 2018, so it's been sitting around for a while. It's starting to get a bit of body to it, which is good. It's actually quite nice drinking now. Yours might be a little
So
young.
mine's the 2020, and I must say I've had a sip, and this wine starts brilliantly, and then you go, oh, young wine, almost straight after that.
Yeah.
So it needs a
Okay.
little while
That's
to calm down.
so that's the taste that I refer to of the it's too young. I think I've just drunk petrol.
It's not
Okay.
that bad, but yes,
It's not that
maybe.
bad. I will say though, you should try decantering it,
Yep.
decantering it for a little period of time, and you'd be surprised, even for a young wine, what that would do. Now, I've also got, by the way, yeah, we said we should go and yeah, and we with the team we actually talked about. Look, you're in lockdown. You're going to have some spare time every now and then. Make sure you keep studying and keep your skills up to date. So I thought I'd study this. Now, what this is? It's actually a wine orator. So
Ah, yes.
I don't know you've probably seen these, and look, in one respect, yeah, it's a bit gimmicky, but in another respect, they actually do work. You sort of you pour your wine in the top here, and I'll just turn that around that way in the top, and it sort of goes through. And depending on the setting here, from 1 to 6, and I think I keep it on about 4 normally. It will actually make sure there's sufficient bubbles in the wine, in the air bubbles as it comes out, to make sure there's a lot of air getting into the wine very quickly. 6 equals more bubbles for really older, heavier wines, and sort of go down to 1 or 0 for just a little bit. It's an interesting experience. You can actually taste the difference. Anyway,
Very cool. Very cool.
how about
Anyway,
that?
we should get on with what we're talking about today. And today we're
Yes.
talking about a new release of something
Ooh,
called the Essential 8. And for those of you
yes.
watching, I'll put up a little thing. Here we go. You can download from it's bit.ly/capital T Essential 8 with a capital E at the beginning, number 8 at the end. So it's way easier to see than me talk it. But Scott, from a high level for people who don't know, what's the
Hmm.
Essential 8?
So we did have a previous episode about the Essential 8 on the previous version of the Essential 8. So the Essential 8, and prior to the Essential 8, there was the Essential 4.
Mhm.
Um, but the Essential 8 are 8 key mitigation strategies around cybersecurity and risk, or technology risk in organizations. So we'll quickly run through what they are, but if you look at each of these strategies, there are ways that you can help secure your data, your systems, and your organization as a whole, such that it's not easy to extract data out of, or to have ransomware come in and be affected and so forth.
So this is to paraphrase what you said. It's a set of things you should do, instructions built by the Australian government to make yourself more secure, i.e., a security maturity model, right?
Yes, from the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, yes, which is part of the old Signals Directorate. But yes, it is actually a government document, and which is a good reference. There's no specific vendor pushing an agenda of these are the key features of my product. Therefore, these are the key things you should do. This is, look, here are 8 things. Here's a list of 8 things. Go and do these, and you'll be a lot better off. So if you had your house, one might be lock your door, lock your window, put a bolt on something, and that's the sort of thing we're talking about.
So when I was reading through it this morning, because this is what I do, right? I have no life, so why not read the Essential 8? I noticed that it's designed to protect Windows-based internet-connected networks. And I think what's interesting is you said it wasn't vendor-specific, but I think the government's saying, yeah, it really is. This is really specifically designed if you're running Windows, like most people are.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And interestingly enough, originally this came out as the requirement just for the government departments. And the original versions of the document said, look, this is what we want government departments to have in place. And we're not talking about the ultra secure government departments, but just all the normal government departments. Here are the security setup principles we need to have in place to be able to ensure that we've got the right ticks in the right boxes and we're protected. But it's gone a bit further now, so it's good.
Excellent. No, it has, and it's grown up. And I'll just put that link so people can download it back on the screen. So you can actually, if you're watching, it's something you can go get and download. I'll leave that up for a little while so people can see it. Now, let's get back to it. So it's been around since June 2017.
Yeah.
So
the 8 have, yes, the Essential 8 has.
Essential 8 have. And getting into implementing it, they're saying you should identify a target maturity model that's suitable for your environment. And what do they mean? I would have thought it's kind of an all or nothing. Why is there these target models, Scott?
We've got to be careful. And if you actually go back and look at the original version, there were 4 levels.
Right.
And there were actually levels outside of that as well. But level 4 was actually very strict in a lot of areas. And he sort of worked out that, well, many businesses probably wouldn't have those specific needs. Like if I'm maybe the Department of Finance, or maybe it's the Prime Minister's Department or something like that, or maybe it's ASIO or something like that. Maybe, yeah, they're going to have specific security needs above and beyond what the average business is going to have. Therefore, they've got more specific requirements. That maturity level is since no longer there. There's no need to go and publish. They actually take care of that themselves separately. But there are now 3 maturity levels in the document, and really 4, because you can sort of say there is a 0 if you haven't reached maturity level 1 yet.
Yes.
And those 3 levels are, and look, we sort of look at maturity level 1. Come on, everybody's going to be there. No, you actually have to do a little bit of work even to get to maturity level 1 on some of these strategies. And this is the important thing.
So I think it's interesting, and I'll quote from them. They say, with the exception of maturity level 0, which i.e. do nothing, the maturity levels are based on mitigating the increasing levels of adversary tradecraft. That's very James Bond, isn't it? That's very spy-like.
Yes.
But they're talking about you need to consider the likelihood of you being targeted by one of these bad guys is influenced by the desirability to adversaries, like what can they get if they get into your systems, the consequences, and the requirement for confidentiality of the data. So it's not about how big you are, it's not about how many staff you have, it's about what type of data do you have in your business, right?
It is, and the ease of access to that data. And this is starting to get more towards managing risk. Just because you have an old Windows PC that may have vulnerabilities in it, if that PC isn't connected to your network and maybe isn't even connected to the internet, then your sort of level of risk is fairly low. I mean, who's going to get to it? An attacker would have to physically be at site, plug something in. And depending on if you've just got an old game on there, is someone really likely to spend all that time to break into somewhere to physically go and hack a machine like that? It's not worth their time and effort.
But if I'm an accounting firm with tax file numbers and financial details
Yes.
on a bunch of clients, then it doesn't matter if I've only got two people in my business. It's those ones who should be looking at a higher maturity level, right?
Absolutely. Anyone that's got personal information about people, anybody that's got secure financial data, which is, look, most businesses have an element of secure data, such that if that data was released out into the public, it would cause harm to them,
Hmm.
either reputational damage or operational damage. For example, maybe it's getting away. Here's how our business works, and all your competitors look at that and go, "Oh, is that how they do that?" And all of a sudden, your competitive advantage is an element there.
So secrets are important in business. I think
Yes,
it's quite funny. I chat to my kids about reading terms and conditions on things and understanding how organizations have access to their data, and they go, "Well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so it doesn't matter." And I go, "Yeah, but secrets are important. That's how you become competitive in business. That's how grow your key intellectual property. There's all sorts of things there."
yeah. Look, a lot of those terms and conditions were very favoured towards the supplier,
Yep.
and until it became like very public knowledge about what they said. For example, if you use our application on our website, all of the data is ours, regardless of whether you like that or not. And it'll be in
Yep.
fine print in there somewhere. And then after a while, people start complaining about that, which starts to generate reputational damage for that company. And all of a sudden, they change their policies as a result. Meanwhile, on the back, they're selling off all that data. Yes. Some of the
Cool.
antivirus products had that at one point too.
No,
Anyway,
I understand that. So, maturity level one, let's just
yes,
quickly go through those, is about adversaries looking for any victim. They're not specifically targeting you. You just get caught up in the general morass of viruses, spyware, spam, that kind of stuff.
yeah. Look, there used to be people behind these going, I'm manually trying to break into organizations one at a time, and I'm going to use
Hmm.
these specific tools and procedures that I've learned and so forth. But it's a very slow approach. So that got automated. It actually got
Yep.
built into systems. It got scripted. You can go online now and put your credit card in, and all of a sudden list a whole bunch of people you want to attack, and off it goes. And
So,
that's the
so
whole thing.
maturity level one is really countering those already published exploits, right? We
Yeah.
know about them. We know what people are doing. Maturity level two
Mm.
is a step up. So adversaries will invest more time and perhaps more effective tools. So they're doing well-known things, but they'll try and do more of them. So technical,
Yes.
social engineering, phishing, weak multi-factor authentication. They're trying to get in to get data from those organizations rather than
And
just a scattergun approach. This is, I'm now actually trying to get to this org.
that's right. And you'd have to look at what sort of data do I have, and is that really something that's going to be of value to someone? What could they do with that?
Yep. Yep. Sure. Now, maturity level three, which is fairly onerous, it's about
Yes.
adversaries who are actually trying hard to exploit a specific organization. So, for example, an accounting firm. I really want to get into those because I know they've got data and money. A bank,
Yeah.
a financial planner, a Bitcoin exchange, anything where I can get commercial advantage from doing it. These are the kind of ones, right?
Yes, that's right. And this
Okay.
is you look, this to some degree this applies to most people in finance and banking industries, insurance, a lot of online applications where they're storing credit card details. There's a whole variety here, and the conditions have actually increased for each of these maturity levels.
Yes, I saw that. So I think the requirements is the next bit we get to. So I'm not going to go through the hyperlinks, but then we get when we get to the next bit where this entire thing goes. So there's some descriptions which are. No,
Well,
I don't think we need to. We can describe them as we go. We'll keep
well,
going through those.
yeah. So
Okay.
there are 8 specific strategies. One of
Yes.
them is around application control. It basically
Yes.
says you have a list of the applications that you are allowing to run on your corporate workstations. And if
Yep.
there's anything else that tries to run, it's blocked.
Okay, so this is actually the things you need to have in maturity level one. That's sorry, I missed that. So let's kind of go through that.
But
Application control, right? We control
yes,
what you can run. You just can't run everything.
That's right. And look, most antivirus products now, or the old what were antivirus products in the past, they've actually grown a lot. They all do all different levels of security now. They have the ability to do things like list the whitelist, or we don't call it that anymore, do we? But list the applications that you wish to allow to run, and list
Yes,
the
so you've got the safe list of applications, the unsafe list of applications.
The unsafe list.
We have changed our terminology, absolutely.
Well, there you go.
So maturity level 1, you need application control. Now, I know lots of organizations which don't have that. I know they should, but lots which don't. So something like Microsoft Intune or a decent RMM system will allow you to do this kind of control, right?
Well, strangely enough, most organizations have the ability to do this now. It's just the thing where, oh, what if someone wants to run something? Well, they're not allowed to. That's the whole purpose of this. You're locking down the workstations such that only the tools and applications that you know are safe are allowed to run. That way, if they did get hacked for some reason, and especially if people taking workstations home, plugging them into home networks and so forth, you want them blocking unknown applications from running.
Absolutely. Next, patch. We've talked about this, Scott.
Patching. And this is interesting. So this used to be the original, or the previous version of this, as in from 2 weeks ago, because this is very new. Patching applications, we used to have a little less stringent list of requirements for this, but now we're actually starting to get into a bit of detail. Like for maturity level 2, actually and 1 now as well, you actually have to be running vulnerability scanners in your network. And this is a new requirement, and I just automatically recognize that there's a whole bunch of vulnerability scanner vendors out there that are all of a sudden going to be pushing this in their marketing very quickly. But most organizations probably aren't running vulnerability scanners unless your MSP is doing it for you as part of what they do. Now, we do in our managed clients, we know that, and we actually get the reports and go through them and, hey, we've got to address this and this and so forth.
So I think that's a really interesting point. If I was sitting here in an organization where I've got like a member of staff running IT, or I'm not going out to a managed service provider, I've got to go and find solutions for these things, right?
You do, and these can get quite technical. They're like vulnerability scanners. It's a tool that you sit on your network, and it has a list, a bit like, think of antivirus how it used to be. It's got a list of all the bad things it knows about. And for some of these scanners, they will have a list of 50 to 60,000 known threats. And it will go and find everything on your network and start looking for those threats to see if they exist. And it'll come back with a report and say, I found this machine, it's a host, it's a router, it's a firewall, and we managed to expose that it's vulnerable to this, and this. Go and fix this.
So it's not just that, right? It's things like your PDF software, and anything you're running can have vulnerabilities in it.
Absolutely.
So let's go through some more. Microsoft Office macros disabled.
Ooh. Hey.
Macros blocked. Macro antivirus. And macro security setting not being able to be changed by users.
Yes, and you're now also at level 2 having to log whenever someone does run a macro in an Office application.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just looking at level 1 here. This is the most basic level, which is hilarious. Next thing, user application hardening, right? Number 1, web browsers do not process Java. That's interesting.
Yes. Well, I think in general you'd remove Java.
You would.
Unless you've got a specific internal application that runs it.
Like every government department. Anyway, this is phrased so PC. Internet Explorer 11 does not process content from the internet. That's saying don't use Internet Explorer 11 unless it's talking to an internal application, right?
That's right. You've got an old application there that you haven't had a chance to update yet. Yes.
I have no idea.
I actually like the second one.
Web browsers do not process web advertisements from the internet, and that's important too.
Yeah. All of a sudden, there goes the ad revenue. Anyway.
But I think it's interesting. They're talking about user application hardening, and they really have understood that most applications run in a browser now.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, moving on. Restrict administrative privileges. We've talked about this for a while, making sure, we call it authorized least privilege. give people only the privileges they need to do their job and no more.
That's right. And most organizations, I would say, would have a hard time ticking all these boxes.
I'm thinking most organizations would have a hard time ticking most of these boxes. Cool. We talked about vulnerability scanning. They're talking about operating systems. Make sure your
Yes.
operating systems are scanned within 48 hours if an exploit exists. So that means those critical security patches that come out on a Tuesday need to be done by Thursday.
Yeah, this is a hard one because all of a sudden a vulnerability is found, and look, a lot of applications today use common open source foundations in when they're written, and these open source foundations, there's a lot of older security threats that are finding their way out of those, so that when organizations find, oh look, we're running this application, we've had a 0-day threat in this old module that someone wrote 10 years ago. Okay, there's a patch coming, and we've got like within 48 hours to actually go and fix it on our internet-facing server. That's a very rushed sort of time frame for most organizations.
I would say I hear you, but not so much, right? A lot of these, if you keep things consistently up to date, doing a minor version upgrade for a security vulnerability should have absolutely no impact or tiny impact on what you're doing. The issue comes, though, when you've let everything, you've gone and developed an internal application or something, and you've let it sit, and you haven't kept it up to date. That's when your issues start.
Well, especially the 48-hour one. But
Sure.
I'm still looking at things like, how do you get change windows for bringing key applications down? Let's say we've got websites that are online running processing business data around the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, we've got to bring it down for a while to make sure that this is just level one.
Yeah, but for a start, you shouldn't have to ever bring an app down to do an update to it. There are mitigations for that.
You are true. Modern applications, you should not have to do that with.
Yep, no, absolutely. Next one, we've spoken about this ad nauseum, multi-factor authentication.
Well, so Nick, just very quickly, the previous line there, though, operating systems that are no longer supported by vendors are replaced.
Are replaced, yes.
Now, I guess you've got to question what the term support means, but Windows 7.
I think vendors, I think if you go and look at Microsoft's secure support policy, Windows 7 is no longer supported by Microsoft. I think that's...
Yes, there is a way to get extended support. I'm not sure it's a great...
Yes, you have to pay a lot of money for it, though. It's not cheap.
But does that mean it's no longer supported?
If that means it's supported by the vendor, absolutely. Right?
If you pay the money.
If you pay the money.
Yes,
absolutely. Okay. And that's beyond the reach of any but the largest organizations, really. It's crazy money.
These are special cases. Yes,
absolutely. Multi-factor authentication. I don't need to go into that. We know what it is, and we've spoken about it time and time again on this multi-factor authentication. You need to do it.
You need to do it, and in fact, it's tightened up a lot in this version as well.
But I would say I saw something interesting happen with a little sporting club I'm associated with. Someone's husband walked in, he's a cybersecurity person, and immediately turned on multi-factor authentication, which actually meant, because he hadn't implemented it with regards to the users, that 50% of the users can't access the systems at all anymore because it wasn't rolled out properly. So I would say he who sacrifices usability for security deserves neither. And that was one of those cases.
Yeah, there is a bit of a process that you can't just go and tick all the boxes and then, I've done my technical bit, off I go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So anyway, regular backups, which we've spoken about as well. You need to make backups. Here's an interesting one. Unprivileged accounts can only access their own backups.
Yes, this is new because there used to be some things in here talking about backups must be stored in a non-erasable and non-destructible format or method. And there was a lot of terminology around, well, what exactly does that mean? So they've actually changed that now, because we worked out in reality that means you've got to put it onto a write once tape and put it somewhere. And that was just not a great idea.
Absolutely. So what I'm gonna do, just I'm mindful of time because we try not to make these run too long. I'm going to skip maturity level 2. Understanding it's harder than maturity level 1, and I'm going to go straight to maturity level 3 just for laughs. Would that be a fun thing to do, Scott?
Well, I tell you what, maturity level 3 is a lot stronger in this version of the document, and where I think you'll find people have gotten to that point previously, they probably aren't there anymore now.
I think,
and this is interesting.
Absolutely. So application control, similar, but Microsoft's block rules are implemented. Microsoft's recommended driver block rules are implemented. Rule sets are validated on a frequent basis. Allowed or blocked executions are centrally logged.
I will say though, the point previously in the document did say you've got to verify if this is appropriate for your business's level of risk.
Yep. Absolutely.
Patches again, quite
Patching
detailed.
starts to be looking similar, but then it goes on.
There's a lot more words there.
There's a lot more words. Absolutely. Applications no longer supported by vendors are removed. Office macros. This goes on and on and on.
Oh, yes.
Things like not making Win32 API calls, security settings cannot be changed. I would say turn off macros is kind of the message I'm hearing here, unless you really, really, really need it.
It can be hard though. You're finding organizations that have had spreadsheets with macros in them from years past that are still using them to perform calculations, and they've got to get to them over time and remove them.
Perfect point. If you listen to the Accounting Technology Fireside Chat podcast this morning, and we're talking about how do we remove spreadsheets from businesses. So I managed to get an accountant to agree that it was probably better if we started removing spreadsheets. Yes. Anyway.
Yes.
Lots and lots of user application handling. So Office can't create child processes. PDF software can't. Vendor hardening guidance. .NET Framework 3.5, including .NET 3.0.
That's going to hurt.
Removed. Windows PowerShell 2.0 is disabled or removed. Those are quite big.
Yeah, there's a lot of applications still floating around out there in older versions of .NET, and even PowerShell too.
Yes, but you don't need to be running PowerShell 2.0. You can upgrade that. But .NET Framework 3.5, there's legacy applications that use that. So that's fascinating. Administrative privileges is restricting, disabled, and all sorts of things like that. That goes on. That's very, very complicated. But they do talk about Windows Defender Credential Guard and Windows Defender Remote Credential Guard.
We're going to look into that one. Yes,
I think we should. Yep, just-in-time administration as well. I think that's really important to think about. So you're not an administrator until you need to do something. Then you are. Then you aren't again.
Yes, timed administration access.
Yep.
Yes.
Patching. Lots more words here, but very similar. Multi-factor authentication goes on and on. Verifier impersonation resistant. Yep. Something users have and something they know, or something they have that is unlocked by something they know or are. Which is that one. Regular backups is very similar to the rest of them.
It's not too bad, the backups one, yes, but it does. We're still looking at unprivileged accounts just not being able to access things.
And then we go on and talk about the comparison of maturity levels, which I think we can let people read at their leisure, given we've been wittering on about this for half an hour.
So the interesting thing overall, though, is that this is it's getting a lot more detailed. The notch is being moved a little bit every time this comes out.
Yep.
So I guess it's important not to fall too far behind.
I think that's the same with everything, and I think that's the message. The more you fall behind, the harder it is to get back. If you keep everything up to date and current, you're making small incremental changes always, rather than having this big, massive change you have to do. But I think if you are setting up a new business now, you start here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think organizations need to look at and make a risk-based decision on what maturity level best suits their organization, and say that is the standard that we are setting in place. And that's just a big step there, because now you've got a list of recommendations that you can move forward with.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So that was it. That was the review of the latest updates to the Essential 8 maturity model published by the Australian Government Signals Directorate, cyber.gov.au. There's a link on the screen and I'll make sure that goes in the comments on everywhere we post this for you to read it. And that was the wind down for this week. I hope you found it interesting. We certainly got a like. I always appreciate likes. But if you do want us to discuss a comment, please subscribe, leave a comment letting us know what topics you'd like us to discuss. We certainly will do those. If you're listening after the fact, thank you for coming along and listening. There's lots more episodes. This is actually episode number 42, which is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. And I'm looking forward to us hitting the milestone of episode 50. So, Scott, thank you so much once again.
That's all right. Thank you, Nick. It's good to know that the essential eight is the meaning of life.
Absolutely. And I super hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the day. And if you are in lockdown, keep smiling. We got loads of podcasts for you to watch while you're sitting there not doing anything. So thanks, Scott.
If you are in lockdown, I will say one thing very quickly, and this is something my wife mentioned before. She read online that this is the only time in your life you're likely to be able to go into a bank and ask for money wearing a mask.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a story about that, but I'll leave it for another time. Scott, thank you so much. Everybody, thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.